Alright, man, peace. So as the LeBron James and Cleveland narrative nears its conclusion, you're going to see more and more players and notable figures within the NBA sports media start to reveal the truth. That being that this whole concoction by the liberal portion of the sports media, that LeBron James doesn't have any help, that he's some type of victim in Cleveland where he's been forced to take undermanned squads to the NBA Finals every year. People are going to start to refute that more and more. And you can tell that there's a level of disdain that's held by many of the more prominent players around the NBA for these constant excuses that are generated for LeBron by the liberal sports media. Steph Curry and what he's about to say here is just a small end sample for that. He's going to be the first of most likely going to be many players that are going to come out and say over the next couple of years that the LeBron James narrative has been a complete media concoction in regards to him not having enough help. And it's going to be very interesting to see the decision that LeBron makes in this offseason in regards to what team he goes to. He's going to have to be very particular about it because it's going to have to be a team with enough talent that he feels like he can get the support that he needs to try to make a championship run, while at the same time being willing to acclimate themselves, his new team I'm talking about, to his style of play, that being the LeBron James system. So really, where is he going to be able to go? We'll see. We'll find out. But I'm pretty sure that he's not going to go to San Antonio. I mean, unless Popovich decides to hand over the keys to the team to LeBron James, which you never know. He just may decide to do. Popovich may sit back and say, you know what? LeBron is woke. I'm woke. Let me give him the keys to the woke-mobile, and he can take this team and control it for the next 3 seasons, him and Kawhi. Maybe he can tap into whatever it is that is wrong with Kawhi, and I could just sit back and chill for 3 years. Phil Jackson did it with Kobe and Shaq. Maybe I can do it. Just chill out for a while. Who knows what's going to happen? The NBA offseason oftentimes can be as eventful as the postseason is, and that's one of the things that the NBA has going for it. But just getting back to Mr. Steph Curry, he's going to make some statements that are going to corroborate many of the sentiments that I've put forth on this channel in regards to LeBron, quote-unquote, not having enough help. First off, if you're LeBron James and supposedly you make everyone better, there's no such thing as you not having enough help. And as was proven in Game 3 of the NBA Finals, they have plenty of talent on the Cleveland Cavaliers. They just don't know how to use it. The coach doesn't know how to use the help that LeBron James has, and LeBron does not know how to use that help. Because Rodney Hood came off the end of the bench and was scoring and assisting LeBron James like any other competent NBA player can do if given a chance. If given a chance. And oh, by the way, I made a comment in one of these videos pertaining to King Henry VIII being a so-called black man. Of course, this is a sports video, so it really does not have a direct correlation per se. But just for example, when we look at a Steph Curry right here, King Henry VIII looked a lot like Steph Curry in regards to complexion and physical attributes, meaning what? King Henry VIII was a very light-skinned so-called black man with red hair. That's why you'll notice that amongst so-called black people, we call people who are very light-skinned, we call them red bones. Like Malcolm X, for example, even though he was not that light-skinned, he had red hair. He was called Detroit Red. And Steph Curry here, we also see that phenomenon with him having blackish, reddish hair. That's why King Henry VIII is described as having red hair. He was known as tawny. He was known as being tawny. I went through these various descriptive terms that were used during the medieval time period all the way through the 1700s for so-called black people who lived in Europe and who were the ruling class during that time period for over 1,000 years. If you were anywhere from a light skin to a medium brown, you were known as tawny. If you were dark skinned, you were known as swarthy. But we'll be going over that again. I was referencing that in an old history video that I did where I lightly touched on some of those issues. A video that I did called Ben Franklin versus the Black Germans. And the last name Curry is a British/Scotch last name. But we'll be covering that down the line in a whole other series pertaining to history when that time comes. But yes, King Henry VIII looked a lot like Steph Curry, at least in regards to some of his physical descriptions. He looked a lot like, I mean, if we really want to go there, the comedian Sinbad. King Henry VIII was about 6'2", very athletic, but he endured a very debilitating leg injury in a jousting tournament when he was knocked off his horse, and he never fully recovered from it. Eventually, he became morbidly obese. But that's a whole other video for another day. Let's get back to Mr. Steph Curry and see what he has to say about LeBron James and exactly how much help he has.
I hate when people say that. Like, they're NBA players, and yeah, they're new and whatnot. And Bron is amazing. He played an unbelievable playoff run to date, and has willed his team to his 8 straight finals and all that, which is it's unbelievable. It's an amazing performance, but don't disrespect the other guys out there. They fought hard too.
In other words, what Steph Curry is saying is that stop trying to push and promote that LeBron James has no help. You see that little wry smile he has on his face at the end? Because just for him, in front of all these media members, to try to controvert the overall sentiment, the narrative that is placed on LeBron James in regards to him not having enough help, can you imagine the amount of vitriol that he most likely speaks about this topic with while he's in the locker room with his teammates in private? A lot of these guys around the league, they're getting tired of hearing about how LeBron does not get any help. Now imagine if LeBron James had the roster of players that Steph Curry had a couple of years ago when they won 73 games. With Harrison Barnes and Andrew Bogut and Leandro Barbosa and Festus Ezeli coming off the bench. A lot of these players now, you don't even hear about them since they left the Warriors. And supposedly the Warriors were so stacked that year. They had all this talent, supposedly. If LeBron James played with those same players, including Klay Thompson and Draymond Green, they'd be saying that LeBron has no help. Because they'd be playing in the LeBron James system, and they would only be allowed to take wide open jump shots. That's it. But in a real system, we get to see players show what they can do. So once again, LeBron is almost too great for his own good. He can do too many things for his own good because it keeps his teammates from showing what they can do in a team sport.
Curry keeping it PC there, fellas. That was before Game 7.
I don't think he was keeping it PC. I think he was keeping it cryptic.
Game 7 last night saying LeBron has been amazing, but don't disrespect his teammates. Max, do you agree with Curry? Does he have a point there?
Yes, he has a great point, but you have to be able to discern and decipher exactly what he's saying. If you don't have those abilities, you're not going to get it. And if you're a LeBron James super fan like Max Kellerman, you're definitely not going to get it. Look at the graphic in the lower left-hand corner. They have his teammates holding up his cape like he's a king, that they're just part of his retinue. And they could be a lot more than that if they actually had a real system that they were running. But that would take away from LeBron's glory, and he can't have that.
Of course not. Steph Curry is being a respectful competitor. He's respecting the competition because he's got to compete against them. He can't take them light. That's how you get caught.
Well, wouldn't one think that if Steph Curry was actually trying to respect the competition, he would have spent more time talking about how great LeBron was, because LeBron is the main threat? Could one not make the point that Steph Curry was actually leveling a very subliminal attack on LeBron James by saying you have more help than they get credit for and you're not using them properly?
So I understand why he says it, but he's wrong. Look, I understand that the NBA, everything we say about NBA players, it is almost not an exaggeration to say every person alive on the planet Earth who is capable of playing in the NBA is playing in the NBA.
As Stephen A. Smith would say, let's be very, very clear. George Hill was the starting point guard on an Indiana Pacers team that got to the conference finals with the Indiana Pacers. Rodney Hood has been a player on the Utah Jazz who's averaged 17, 18 points a game. And prior to the playoffs, I stated explicitly that I thought that Rodney Hood would have at least one game where he went off about 30 points. Unfortunately, he's been unable to do so because he's been relegated to the end of the bench because he came against the LeBron James dictatorship. And Ty Lue basically told him, you got to sit your ass right there at the end of the bench with Perkins. Because until you understand that you must bow down to LeBron, you can't play.
There's no more competitive industry anywhere in the world. I know that's it's hyperbole, but barely hyperbolic to say that. So it is an incredible accomplishment, particularly if you're not 7 feet tall. You know, if you're like under 6'6" or something like that. You make it to the NBA, you're one of the greatest athletes who ever lived. We get the standard, it is absurdly high.
Or your skill level is as high as it can be. When you're under 6'5", 6'4", and you're in the NBA, you have to have an absurd amount of skill, particularly be a starter in the NBA. So that's why I give Steph Curry credit, and that's why I stated in the other video that I did about him, that for him to be as dominant as he is and not be a transcendent athlete shows you how non-pareil his skill level is.
Well, I get if I say, oh, this guy's no good. I'm talking about by NBA standards, not by human standards. But we're talking about NBA standards. And the Cavs, other than LeBron, are no good. I mean, Kevin Love's supposed to be an all-star. And if he played like an all-star, they needed to play like an all-star if they want a chance against the Warriors. But, Stephen A., I got a quick thought for Steph. Want to trade squads with LeBron? Didn't think so.
It depends. If Steph Curry were to have the Cleveland Cavaliers and have them get coached up by Steve Kerr, where they were utilizing constant movement, and we got to see things out of them that we don't get to see, with LeBron James as the head of that snake, who knows what they could do? Who knows? Look, I have LeBron James on my list as number 6 all time. 5A right behind Larry Bird. But once again, LeBron James falls into the same category as Wilt Chamberlain. And I get a lot of Kobe Bryant's emotional ass fanboys to come on my channel talking about, I can't believe you have LeBron over Kobe. Kobe Bryant and LeBron James are two different categories of players. Kobe Bryant is a wing. He's a scorer. So I can never have him in my top 10 because he's nowhere near the player that Michael Jordan was. A lot of people might not understand that, but he just wasn't. When you're talking about LeBron James, he just does a lot more. He brings a lot more to the table. People are going to get emotional. They're going to talk about how Kobe Bryant was way more of an assassin. All this opinion-based, emotional-based bullshit. But when we're evaluating LeBron James, once again, he's like Wilt Chamberlain. He almost has too many gifts. Too many gifts for his own good. And it stops his teammates from being as good as they can be. Wilt Chamberlain should have won more championships in the 60s. He should have been the guy to have won 11 titles, not Bill Russell. But Bill Russell understood how to use his team. Now, I get a lot of idiots that come on my channel, oh, Bill Russell, he couldn't score. Wasn't that he couldn't score. He wasn't concerned about scoring. His mentality was, I'm going to guard my man. I'm going to guard everybody else's man. I'm going to get 30 rebounds. I'm going to get 6 blocks. And by the way, I'm also going to score 13, 14 points. And we're going to whoop your ass. That was his mentality. Wilt Chamberlain was far more talented than Bill Russell. How come he didn't win? Because there was a certain je ne sais quoi that he was missing. There was a certain little something that he was missing. Same thing with LeBron. There's a certain little something that LeBron is missing. That other players have. That Larry Bird had. That Magic Johnson had. That Michael Jordan had. LeBron just doesn't have that little special something. Now, he started to approximate that little special something over the last couple of years, especially this year, with his ability to close, which he'd never fully shown in the past, at least not to this level. But he's so set in his ways right now. I just don't see him ever being able to fully utilize his team unless he's playing on a super team, which he's going to try to do next season. I would be interested to see if he goes to San Antonio, just to see how him and Popovich relate to one another.
The reality is the situation is clear. He was being respectful to his competition. I don't blame him for saying what he said. It's showing respect for your contemporaries. But again, if everybody was equal, Steph Curry wouldn't be special. And as a result, he wouldn't be getting paid $207 million.
I agree, sir.
All right? Everyone's not on his level. He's the greatest shooter I've ever seen.
He's right there. I would put him number 1 as well, but Larry Bird is right there. And Larry Bird does not have the type of flame outs that Steph Curry often has. But yes, I would have Curry number 1.
The greatest shooter in the world as far as I'm concerned. He's a superstar in this league and deserves all the acclaim that he has received. The same could be said for LeBron. When you look at Kevin Durant, the same could be said. When you look at a Kawhi Leonard, a Russell Westbrook, a James Harden, a CP3, there are levels to this. And when you are competing, if everyone is equal, then you're not special. And last time I checked, everybody wants to be special. which means that equality is not a part of the equation.
Well, Stephen A. Smith, I wish that you understood that sentiment, and I wish that a lot of other pro-blacks understood that sentiment when it came to society. Did you hear what Stephen A. Smith just stated? He stated that it's more important to consider yourself special and to try to be preeminent than to be equal. Why is it that pro-blacks cannot understand that, but they can understand it when it comes to basketball? Ain't that a bitch? Let me rewind that back.
So, a Russell Westbrook, a James Harden, a CP3, there are levels to this. And when you are competing, if everyone is equal, then you're not special.
Ding! So-called black man, I hope that you understand that. I know for a fact Stephen A. Smith doesn't understand it, but he said it anyway. Because people understand certain sentiments when they can couch them in metaphors, or when they're more apparent when they're speaking on other topics. But it's just very strange that they can't grasp those same sentiments when it comes to matters of importance.
And last time I checked, everybody wants to be special, which means
They should want to be special. But I don't think that the so-called black man and so-called black woman understand what it means to consider yourself special. Because if they did, they would not be so concerned about getting that hug from the Caucasian man and woman. They'd be concerned about their own and making sure that they build themselves up and build up their own.
means that equality is not a part of the equation.
Ding. I hope that you remember that, Stephen A. Smith, when it comes to other topics, sir, but I doubt it.
So when they say these kind of things, I think that they're putting something on the media that does not belong on our shoulders. The reality is that teams and players themselves define players' worth every single day. And it's crystallized and magnified by the salaries some receive and the disparity of it compared to others.
Well, Stephen A. Smith, here's why I disagree with you, brother. What Steph Curry's talking about is the potential for great players to bring out the best in their teammates. When Steph Curry sees a George Hill, when he sees a Rodney Hood, when he sees even a J.R. Smith or a Tristan Thompson, he sees what I'm talking about. He sees the potential for those players to achieve greatness in their role, if their role is defined as something other than being a background dancer for the NBA's James Brown, that being LeBron James. That's what Steph Curry sees, because it's almost like a canvas. When a regular person sees a canvas, all they see is a large piece of paper. When an artist sees a canvas, they see potential. You, as a regular media member, you're not going to see the potential in a Tristan Thompson, a George Hill, a J.R. Smith that a Steph Curry can see. Steph Curry's like, man, if we had that player in our system, do you know what we could do with a J.R. Smith? Do you know what we could do with a George Hill? You think that Sean Livingston would be as potent as he is with the Golden State Warriors on another team? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. He might be a good help, but he wouldn't be as potent as he is. Andre Iguodala, Draymond, they wouldn't be as potent. So everyone sees things on a different level depending on your understanding. Understanding is totally disparate from knowledge.
This is the reality of the situation. So it sounds good, but it's all talk. It's just a bunch of blather, because at the end of the day, what it comes down to is that, again, there are levels and there are certain people who have it and certain people who do not have it, meaning that...
Well, I think his point, Stephen A.
Stephen A. Smith, you're talking about superstardom. All Steph Curry's talking about is what you can get out of so-called role players. That's all he's talking about. And he's basically saying in a very subliminal, cryptic way that LeBron James is not getting out of those role players what he should be.
Stephen A.
Those who have it are superstars.
Right, I think his point, I don't think any of us are saying anything different. I think his point is they're all special to be in the NBA in the first place. We understand that, Steph. Stephen A., we all understand. You got to be crazy special to even be in the league. But among any population, you can put them on a bell curve, right? Some people are going to be way over here. Those are the best of the best. And over here, the worst of the best. And in the middle, in the case of the NBA, and most fall in the middle.
Well,
and LeBron is one guy alone is the best of the best. And other than Kevin Love, all his other teammates are on the other side of the spectrum. Among population in the NBA.
Nonsense. Once again, these people would have you believe that LeBron James is playing with a bunch of developmental league stars or players who were fresh out of college. That's not the case. All of the players that LeBron is playing with are notables. That's Steph Curry's point. Once again, his point is that LeBron is not making sure that he's optimizing the talent around him because they're playing in the LeBron James system. You take many of those players and bring them to Golden State, and look at what they do. Look at Nick Young. Look at JaVale McGee. Look at what they've done with those guys. If those guys were anywhere else, people on television like Stephen A. Smith and Max Kellerman will be calling them bums. This is what I'm talking about when I talk about understanding. They can bring forth what they know, but do they understand what they're watching when it comes to a macrocosmic perspective?
There are scrubs in the NBA. There are a few scrubs. There are a few guys that's in the league.
Well, who's considered a bigger scrub or was considered a bigger scrub than JaVale McGee or Nick Young? Both of those guys were known for winning the Shaqtin' a Fool award. And Steve Kerr and the Golden State staff brought them on, and now they're about to win a championship. And JaVale McGee has been an integral member of their team off the bench. It's not about how things look from the outside. It's about what you can see within a person, what you can bring out of them. That's what the term educate literally means. It means to be brought forth, brought out. It's from the Latin, educare. It means to be led out. What can you bring out from someone? That's where we get that term, this person brought the best out of me. That's literally an allusion to the term educate or educare. That's what a great teacher does. They can bring the best out of a student. They see potential in a student and they lead it out of them. Once again, that's what Steph Curry and people who see basketball on a higher level can notice. And that's why he's saying what he's saying pertaining to LeBron, and that's why he's so annoyed about this narrative that the media is promoting.
Because of politics, because they're likable. There are other guys who are in the league because they're big and they have size and girth. But that doesn't mean they can play. There's a few scrubs in the NBA.
Max, you get the last
Everybody
word.
ain't special.
No straight scrubs, huh?
He always does.
All right, bye everybody.
But anyway, that's it on this issue. Peace.